Welcome to NFL. Close your eyes and let the story begin. It was beyond her understanding what exactly was wrong with Amma B. There were 3 grown daughters in the house, 3 young women who were all remarkably capable, well-mannered, and graceful. Each of them was skilled in household affairs, obedient to their mother, and blessed with striking beauty. And yet, for reasons no one could quite comprehend, Amma B could not bear their ways or habits. One complaint followed another, new grievances layered over old ones. To the girls, it made no sense why Amma B believed the younger generation to be so delicate, so fond of comfort, and so hopelessly inclined toward idleness. And Amma B, for her part, could never understand the mysterious problems that kept the 3 sisters huddled together in their room for hours on end, their heads bent close in endless discussion. There was no television in the house, no VCR, none of the frivolities of satellite dishes or cable channels. The only entertainment was a tiny old radio. Abba, may God rest his soul, had bought it long ago, and the poor thing had been loyally serving the household ever since. News bulletins, songs, the sisters' chatter, radio dramas, and late-night programs of ghazals. There was hardly a moment of rest for it throughout the day. Even when the girls' own voices were chattering away, the radio hummed somewhere in the background. A pot simmered on the stove, the radio playing, "My eyes are deeply drawn to you," and no matter what restrictions might be imposed, the song would be listened to till the very end. My heart's plaything, oh, it's shattered. The toy of the heart has broken. Along with the broken toy, it seemed that a few kitchen utensils were also breaking. Amma stirred the pot, while the radio played on. The girls had bid farewell to books and schools long ago. Yet, there remained something incomprehensible about the way they spent their days. From morning until evening, they sat on the same bed in the same room, their heads together, whispering endlessly. Oh heavens! What on earth could they be talking about that never seems to end? Amma B was thoroughly displeased with these daily gatherings of her daughters. God knows what havoc they'll wreak in the homes they marry into. With manners like these, they'll be dragged out by their braids and thrown out the very next day. Out of the room they drift, humming. Back into the room they buzz. Not a care in the world. The clothes of the passing season need to be stored away, and the bedding for the coming season brought out. If I weren't here, summer would pass wrapped in winter quilts. Amma B would grumble and grumble until, at last, she would fall silent again. But only for a while. The moment she spotted the slightest flaw or oversight, her alarm would begin ringing once more. The girls would grow weary of it. Oh, Amma, honestly. For a moment, the gathering would dissolve. The eldest sister was Zeb-un-Nisa. She would slip into the kitchen. The cupboards were spotless. The jars are arranged in perfect order. The dishes were washed and stacked. Everything seems perfectly fine. Look at this. Just a tiny bit of dry flour crisped up on the stove, and Amma has started her complaints again. Taking a damp cloth, she would crouch down and begin scrubbing the stove. The middle sister, Mer-un-Nisa, took charge of cleaning. With both hands planted firmly on her hips, she would inspect the rooms with exaggerated scrutiny. Beds neatly made. Sheets are freshly laundered and wrinkle-free. Pillowcases spotless. Cushions in place. Furniture dusted. The red veranda is shining. The courtyard is freshly washed. And what more does Amma want? Just then, her eyes would drift upward to the ceiling. Well, would you look at that? A tiny cobweb. A spider could barely squeeze into it. No wonder Amma's muttering hasn't stopped. In a flash, she would grab a stick and begin sweeping away the webs. Then she would mischievously snatch Amma's spectacles and perch them upon her own nose. "Let me see the magic of these enchanted glasses," she would say with mock seriousness. "Whether a person standing right in front of you is visible or not. These wretched things never fail to spot a cobweb." The youngest was Nur-ul-Ain. She was always well aware of which duties had been neglected that day, so that she would dash out toward the chicken coop. Grain scattered, water bowls filled, eggs collected from beneath the hens. The bird's little dish was refilled with fresh water, and then she would run back to the room. The two elder sisters would be glued to the radio. Nur ul Ain would immediately join the chorus. If you walk, you set hearts ablaze, fair one. Nayara Nur sang with all her heart on the radio. Amma B burned with equal intensity and irritation. If I don't toss this wretched radio into the stove one day, then my name isn't Kamar Nisa. Evening was beginning to settle over the house. Since Amma had refused to allow lentils and rice to be cooked for dinner, Meru, in sheer defiance, had also refused to make pumpkin raita. Zebi switched on the radio and began writing down a recipe for chicken shashlik being announced on the program. Poor Aini sat nearby with a tangled skein of silk threads spread before her, her eyes brimming with tears as she looked helplessly at both her sisters. Now, who was supposed to separate which thread from which? After all, the fault was entirely her own. Amma had stubbornly insisted on teaching her embroidery stitches, and she had been equally stubborn about not learning them. When every attempt to escape had failed, she had ended up turning the bundle of delicate threads into a hopeless mess. Amma's scoldings had already scorched her back, and now this knot of threads had wrapped itself around her neck like another burden. From the corner of her eye, Meru watched Amma while weighing each of her chicks one by one in her hands. Why on earth did God create you? She held one chick up before her eyes and made it dance playfully. Amma was busy grinding green chilies. If she recognized Meru's mischievous tone, then along with the chilies, Meru herself would be thoroughly crushed in no time. Just then, there was a knock at the door. In the quiet of the rosy evening, the pounding of the grinding stick came to a sudden halt. The door has been knocked, Amma said, turning her neck to look at the youngest. Well, obviously. Even deaf ears couldn't miss a knock that loud. The knock sounded again. Amma rose and walked toward the entrance hall. The moment she did, Meru grabbed the fattest chick and dashed toward the room. Zebi, how much chicken is required for chicken shashlik? Zebi looked at her in astonishment, blinking innocently. There's a perfectly living chicken right in front of you, and you're still asking what I mean? Meru said meaningfully. Zebi stared at her, wide-eyed with disbelief. But what if Amma asks? The cat ate it, Meru replied coolly. Mischief seemed to be the only thing worthy of her name. And who will slaughter it? Say the word, and I'll twist its neck right now, Meru declared bravely, running her hand over the chick's neck. Meru! Zebi! From behind them, Amma's voice rang out like the trumpet of Israfil. Ah! Hearts jolted, hands trembled. The startled chick slipped from Meru's grasp. It fluttered onto Amma's shoulder, rolled briefly at the feet of the stranger standing behind her, and then, in a flash, it was gone. Meru cleared her throat awkwardly, swallowing nervously. Avoiding Amma's eyes, she managed a hurried greeting and slipped past them. Zebi sprang up in panic. The radio resting in her lap crashed to the floor with a loud thud. Take my heart if you wish. Take my life if you wish. She bent quickly to pick up the radio, but before she could reach it, a pair of men's shoes had already come close. So she straightened abruptly, blurted out a greeting, and the very next moment slipped out of the room. Oh, to hell with your heart! Little one! Hey, little one! Amma groped about in frustration. Unable to switch off the radio, she finally snapped and began calling out loudly for Nur ul Ain. Egg halwa stuffed with raisins and coconut, pomegranate seed chutney, pumpkin raita, and roasted chick. Such delicacies were clearly not destined for my fate. There was no remedy for Meru's sorrow. She was arranging the tray with her own hands, saliva gathering at the corners of her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. When has a hen or a chick ever been slaughtered just because we wished for it? These guests are lucky. They'll feast to their heart's content. She had planted herself on the kitchen floor in protest. Zebi had called her several times to come and eat, but Meru sat there stubbornly, both protesting and waiting. So, this is all that's left for us, Raita? And that too made of pumpkin? No, no, I'll only eat after the dishes come back. At last, after much waiting, the dishes returned. Judging from the guest's physique, one would never have imagined he could eat so much. The plate of halva was empty, the chutney gone. The raita remained almost untouched, and a little of the curry was still left. Meru quickly pulled out a piece of bread, but Amma was quicker still. She promptly covered the serving bowl and set it aside. This will be useful for his breakfast in the morning. Meru's temper shot sky high. And what about us? Are we supposed to eat only this pumpkin raita? No, no. Her eyes flashed east and west in theatrical outrage. Amma, put the curry on my bread immediately, or if the cat eats the entire curry tonight, don't blame me later. Amma glared at her angrily. One glance was enough to understand Meru's mood. Zebi and Aini sat quietly, eating with patient gratitude. These two daughters of mine are so patient and content, Amma muttered. And this one, stubborn as a mule. With a thud, she placed the bowl before Meru and walked out. The greedy sparkle in Meru's eyes deepened moment by moment, a sly smile blooming across her lips. Amma's late cousin's orphan son, the guest, Maruf Hassan, was still fast asleep. Breakfast had been ready for ages. A 2-egg omelet, parathas fried in vegetable ghee, and a bowl of yogurt. Meru had no interest in such a breakfast, so she went about finishing all the chores that fell to her share. Mopping the floor, dusting the furniture, washing the kitchen garbage bin, scrubbing the soot-blackened cooking pots. When Zebi grew tired of keeping the breakfast warm in the kitchen, she finally got up and wanted to take a bath. Amma was preparing feed for the hens. Aini was busy loosening the soil in the flower pots. The day was bright and sparkling. The moment Meru was free, she sat down with the radio. A peaceful atmosphere, a clean, tidy room, the sweet relief of leisure and her favorite songs playing. Like a kite, I would soar away, floating and swaying with the wind. But her flight had barely begun when Amma yanked the string sharply. Warm the breakfast. Maruf Hassan has woken up. Oof. Her mood soured instantly. What harm would it have done if His Highness had woken up a moment earlier or a little later? She rise reluctantly to heat the breakfast. The same state of affairs continued at noon. Fresh vegetables were cooked, flatbreads were prepared. But even as everything was ready, the afternoon began to slip away. Amma grew anxious. The girls grew irritated. We can't tolerate such airs and graces, Meru muttered indignantly. Between Amma's unnecessary strictness and the guests' irresponsible behavior, her patience was wearing thin. There are 1,000 restrictions on us. We can't speak loudly, the radio must not play at odd hours, tea and meals must never be even a moment late, and His Majesty has no such rules at all. Some Maharaja, apparently. With a sudden resolve, Meru sat down to write a notice. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, evening tea, all with fixed timings. Time for entering the house. Proper etiquette for staying in the room. Meru kept writing, while the other two sisters leaned over her shoulder, giggling mischievously. But when it came to removing the damp towel from his room, his dirty slippers, and the clothes he left scattered around every morning, Meru absolutely refused. After a fair bit of arguing, poor Amma herself had to gather up his strewn belongings. So, after much deliberation, the entire set of rules and regulations was carefully drafted. Zebi and Aini took full part in the operation. From Amma, however, the whole matter was kept strictly secret. For some reason, she was determined, heart and soul, to serve the guest with utmost devotion. She washed his dirty clothes and spread them out to dry. Until the moment he stepped inside the house, she must have circled the doorway dozens of times in anxious anticipation. The girls, however, did not appreciate this excessive concern for a stranger, not in the least. That evening, he returned home looking utterly exhausted and troubled. He was trying to secure a transfer back to his own city, and all his efforts revolved around that single goal. Mornings at the office, evenings presenting himself before senior officials, submitting a request to one, delivering a file to another. Ah, the 100 entanglements of a job. Did it work out? Amma asked. When he shook his head negatively, her eyes grew moist. Such tenderness spread across her saddened face. He has no mother, and I have no son. Ah, the strange workings of fate. Shaking away the thoughts that rose unbidden in her heart, she comforted him warmly, showering him with consoling words and blessings in abundance. Receiving such affection, his discouraged heart stirred again with hope. I have to meet 1 or 2 people tomorrow. Please pray that things work out. And Amma, like a rain-laden cloud, continued to pour her prayers upon him without restraint. Before long, he too grew cheerful. He had already eaten dinner elsewhere. When Aini came to serve him tea, he began teasing her for no reason at all, aiming mockery at her tiny nose. Looks like you must have fallen on your nose as a child. One of these days, some Japanese fellow might carry you off. Oh, honestly, Aini blushed furiously. Then tell me truthfully, how much did you pay to get that Japanese nose fitted? Well then, you tell me, she retorted, about those elephant-like ears of yours, and that mouse-tail mustache. Ah, Amma sputtered in alarm. Maruf Hassan burst into that seemed ready to crack the ceiling. Such a shameless girl, Amma's eyes bulged with indignation. Aini fled at once, dashing straight into the kitchen. Meru was sitting there waiting for her. There's no need to be so friendly with him, she said sharply. Otherwise, he'll start taking liberties. Poor Aini could only stand there, embarrassed and silent. They waited impatiently until dinner was over. The moment Maruf Hassan finished eating and Amma began her prayers, the 3 sisters slipped quietly into his room. Maruf Hassan was lost in his own thoughts. At the faint sound of a throat being cleared, he first opened his eyes, then sat up abruptly in surprise. All 3 beauties stood over his head with dangerous expressions. Faces charming, postures aggressive. Why exactly have you come here? And he could hardly reply, because you invited me. Before him lay a long list of grave offenses, each committed solely because he had slept late from travel fatigue and then rushed off in the morning to reach the office on time. He tried 100 explanations and apologies, but no one was willing to listen. With both hands resting on his head, he sat silently while the charges were read out against him. Finally, a neatly written list of instructions was waved delicately before his eyes. As he read it, he occasionally glanced up at the 3 of them. One could only imagine what calamity he had invited upon himself by pitching his tent in the kingdom of such tyrannical rulers without first securing their approval. The disdainful pride on their faces said it all. He read the entire document with admirable patience, then folded it respectfully and slipped it into his pocket. And the very next moment, true to the saying, "As you command, so shall my heart obey," he stood up and began packing his belongings. It was a mistake to come here in search of a homely atmosphere, he said calmly, as if the city were lacking in hotels. He spoke so casually as he prepared to leave that the 3 sisters stood there, stunned, mouths open. This had certainly not been part of their plan. They had only intended to teach him a small lesson, nothing more.